There's another part where this group that had set out across the desert that he's with so that he can get to the pyramids, they stop at this what looks like a mirage, but it's like a God, what would you call it? An oasis, where there's some people that live there all the time, but people travel through there on the way through the desert. And he thinks they're just going to be stopping there and then moving on, but there's like a battle brewing, and they end up having to stay there for a longer period of time. And there's this girl there that he decides that he loves her, that he wants to stay there, and that he doesn't need to go any farther with pursuing his personal legend, and that he should stay there and you know, let that be the end of his journey. And she had the presence of mind to know that he would never let it go. If he didn't go and figure out what was at the end of that rainbow, he might be happy with his life the way that it turns out with her, but she would be happier if he had explored, you know, this line as far as he could take it, and then come back to her. If he still wanted to come back to her, and if it was still there, then she would, you know, she basically told him she's there waiting. And if he shows up, then okay, but he needs to go and finish what he started. I'm starting to feel now like that part of my life, the Oasis part of my life, is this what I kind of just ended when I stopped seeing this girl that I love. So what I've talked about so far is hopefully built an impression of me that I don't have strong ties to anything, but I'm okay with it. My kids are that for me. I basically built my group because I never felt like I was at the center of a group. I'm, you know, finally off on this journey by myself, and I come to this place that is like oasis, you know, like this huge storm in my life had just come to an end, and I just like, it was so nice. All the time that I got to spend with those people was amazing. Every person that I met was just terrific. And there's so many positive, just excellent women all around that life, and I wish that my kids had gotten to experience it. I think that's the part of that part of the story that is what keeps me going, just because there's so much that I loved about that time and about those people that doesn't bother me at all, that I had to let her go, and she's doing what she's doing because that's what she needed to do. She needed to build part of her own story. I think she needed to complicate her life a little bit. She wasn't ready to be with somebody like me. So it's exactly what I told her she should do. So I can't hold it against her. But most people would think, how could you think about still being with that person? And that I don't really have an answer for, or really care to find an answer for. I just know how I felt when I was with her, and how I still feel about her now. I can't just let someone else have her. I have to explore every opportunity to be that guy. hate to think that there's somebody out there that's better for her than me. And it's just because of the way that the last 10 years of my life has gone. That's the whole reason why. It's, you know, the complexities in my life. See what happens.
Then, with only a second's pause, the fun started, as 16,000 pounds of thrust and fire exploded from our tailpipes through silver-plated titanium eyelids that quickly moved in and out, then settled on an optimum temperature that gave maximum power. At liftoff, the predictable whisper of the afterburner was soothing and reassuring, and we soon outran the sound. My F-100D was so solid and strong that being afraid wasn't easy.
Last night I stopped just on the side of the road somewhere and slept for a few hours. I was about a half an hour shy of a town called Pineview, Wyoming, and I just kind of stopped wherever I felt like I needed to stop and slept on the side of the road. And then when I got up this morning and I drove into that town, at the gas station I stopped at, there was a phone in the parking lot. So I just picked it up and called it a random number. It was some 15-year-old kid's phone. His mom answered. She's like, "Oh my God, my son just lost it yesterday. Thank you. Leave it right there." So I left it with the lady at the cash register, and you saved that kid from being in some trouble, hopefully. But I just left that town, and I am. The lady I talked to on the phone, her name was Marcy, by the way. It'd be funny to hear from her after this all works out. Yeah, but if you're watching, wouldn't mind hearing from you. I'm headed out of Pineview now, toward the Tetons. I'm gonna take the road that goes along the west side of the parks, so that I can hopefully get to West Yellowstone. I want to start there and then work my way into the park, because that's kind of the way that I sort of narrowed down my search area. Basically, you know, Forrest spent all of his summers when he was a kid in a cabin with his parents and his brother and sister in West Yellowstone. So a lot of what's written in his books talks about how much he loves Yellowstone and you know, the things that he did there, how much he enjoyed fishing and blah blah blah, and his adventuring. But it all starts at West Yellowstone. So I just want to go check the place out, and then I'll move into the park from there and kind of do you know, tell the story of how I narrowed down my search area as I actually narrowed down my search area. But it's going to be about 4 hours still. It doesn't look like it would be if you were to look at a map of the state. It doesn't look like it's very long at all, but it is all mountain driving. I realized this morning when I was downloading videos from yesterday that half the videos I took, there was a smear across the lens of one of the cameras, so there's some blurry crap I'm gonna have to try to improve upon. But oh well, who knows if it was stuff that was worth using anyway. But that's where we're at in Wyoming, on the way to the Tetons, and then into Yellowstone from there. I just passed the first sign that had actual mileage for Yellowstone, 123 miles, but I'm also going to the far end of it, so who knows what that means. I've had absolutely immaculate weather for this entire trip so far, which is cool, you know, for the drive and for seeing things, but it sucks because I haven't checked my phone to see what the extended weather report is for Yellowstone this week now. I watched it for a couple weeks before I left, and it kept saying that it wasn't going to be very nice, which made me happy because it meant that there weren't going to be a lot of people there, hopefully. But with this weather, I mean, it's a good omen for me, I think. Hopefully it means that, you know, people maybe made plans that the weather was going to be bad, and now that it's going to be nicer, that'll, you know, keep it, you know, give me nice weather, but there still won't be a lot of people. Who knows? But leading up to my leaving for this trip, it was looking like the weather was going to be mediocre at best. I thought that would keep people away, but we'll see. The way it is now, it's going to be pretty nice. Eating my last sandwich. Made 4 sandwiches right before I left, cut them in half, and I've been slowly eating the pieces. This is the 8th piece, and it's been Monday morning around this time, so it's been 2 days. Bread's pretty much mush.
But with 4 750-pound bombs, 600 rounds of 20mm high explosive incendiary bullets, and 550 gallons of fuel and 2 high-drag external tanks, we weren't exactly charging the sky. The climb out was smooth as usual, and the jungle through my windscreen was a deep green and covered with trees 300 feet high that seemed less and less important as we clawed for altitude. To the right was the beautiful South China Sea that I had known for many months. The green was different from the color of the trees, but just as beautiful. In a way that I can't explain, the sea seemed somehow foreboding and sinister, at times even diabolical. Maybe it was because I knew the history of that water, its treachery. It had diluted the blood of so many sailors who had dared to test its beauty.
Well, I somehow took a wrong turn, probably while I was talking to the stupid camera, and I went like, I don't know, it's probably a good thing my phone won't update fast enough to tell me mileage from how far I am from stuff, but I basically went like, I don't know, maybe 20 miles out of my way. But now I'm on the right road, and I just saw my first sign for West Yellowstone, which is pretty cool. Very exciting.
At about 4,000 feet, I jiggled my rudder pedal, signaling my wingman to move out so he could relax and we could better keep the watch. Suddenly, something wonderfully innocent occurred. A small clearing appeared at 11 o'clock on my canopy and slowly worked its way under my left wing to disappear behind. It was magical because a small waterfall in the center of the clearing dropped water so far that it turned to mist before it could spread on the rocks below. It must have been 100 feet or more. Large birds were circling around as if they also thought it was an amazing sight. How peaceful it all seemed.
It's not even 11:30 yet, so I'll be there by like 1 o'clock. That's not bad.
I remember smiling and telling myself in an idle whim, if I get back from this mission, I'm going down there. It was a silly thing, and I knew it, but the seriousness of what lay ahead that day somehow turned the whim into a vow, a pledge of sorts. I felt I'd made a deal with that beautiful place. You bring me back, and I'll come down there and personally thank you. The deal was struck. I trusted it, and it could trust me. It was our secret alone. All of our planes returned from that mission, and we kept going back. On each successive climb out before the clearing could disappear beneath my wing, I winked and renewed the vow, and I kept returning. On one mission in North Vietnam, after dropping bombs and turning for home, I let down to 1,000 feet looking for targets of opportunity, maybe army trucks or a munitions storage area. My wingman was 1,000 feet on my right and back at 30 degrees. At 12 miles a minute, the geography was changing fast, and my brain was thinking and planning minutes ahead. Suddenly on the left there appeared a large group of people bunched together, maybe 1,000 or more. I wasn't ready for what was about to happen. Although my guns were hot, I knew I wasn't going to shoot because I had to first determine if it was a legitimate target. If it was, I couldn't come back around for a strafing pass. It was too dangerous. What I could do, though, was call the guys behind me and give them the coordinates. So with an alert to my wingman, we turned in and started down to 500 feet and lit the afterburners.
I'm literally about a half an hour from West Yellowstone at this point, and it's hard not to seriously doubt myself, you know? Like, you get this close and you really start to wonder about the disappointment you're gonna feel. But, you know, but I'm honestly, I'm like picturing Forrest in my head saying, "Come on, you're going to the right place." It's like it's driving me forward. So, you know, I've gone so far at this point. I couldn't imagine not completing the task. You know, within the next few hours, I'm going to be actually looking at these things that I've been, you know, studying for months. It's a weird feeling that it's actually coming.
When I got to the edge of the crowd, I rolled my left wing to get a good look. It was a funeral. We were traveling so fast no one had heard us coming, and when I rolled my wing down, I could see nothing but panic and yelling and screaming and stampeding and terrible fear.
Only 22 miles from West Yellowstone. I believe this qualifies as being in the wood. Close enough. I don't think, you know. And for those of you that know that what I'm talking about already, I don't believe being in the wood necessarily means something more specific than this. You know, I think this is specific enough.
It was horrible. Women were running with babies in their arms. Children had started fleeing in every direction with their arms up as if they were surrendering. One old bearded man with 2 walking sticks just looked at me as if he were resolved to meet his fate. I was so ashamed I started crying in my oxygen mask, sobbing. I could hardly see through the dark visor of my helmet, and the salty tears burned my eyes in a way I had not known for a long time. Suddenly I hated Lyndon Johnson and Robert McNamara and all the other politicians who were sitting in their fat offices at home, totally oblivious to what war was really like. On the 1st of November 1968, all flying in the north stopped, and we started bombing in South Vietnam again and in Laos, which was also dangerous air. President Johnson, who was now maneuvering for peace, was telling everyone at home that we weren't bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos, but no one told us we weren't. About 6 weeks later, on the 20th of December, 3 wingmen and I took off for a serious target in Chapone, Laos. Both the Air Force and the Navy had lost planes on that target in the previous days, and the intelligence officer who briefed us on our mission didn't tell any jokes as he was supposed to. After takeoff, we rendezvoused with a KC-135 tanker, topped off our fuel tanks, and headed for the target. Each of our 4 F-100s was loaded with different ordnance. My plane carried 4 CBU-34, which the Defense Department designated as aerial denial bomblets. We were going to mine the main road of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The plan called for me to go in first while my wingmen held high. I was to drop bomblets on each of 2 passes. It was 17:55, 5:55 p.m. when I ejected from my crippled F-100 and floated down into an uncertain environment.
Okay, right now I'm headed up out of West Yellowstone. I'm headed up along the Madison River toward some campgrounds at a place that I don't remember the name of, but I'm sure I'll remember it as soon as I see it, that correlate with a place that Forrest mentioned, that I just, it's a place that I researched, so I just want to go take a look at it for completion's sake. This road just went off to the, oh, that's just a turnout. Cool. Okay. Alright, so he also mentioned in one of his books that he once sat under a tree along the Madison River and wrote a letter to his wife. And I'm going to do something similar to that in a way to kind of try to connect my spirit to his, so to speak, the way that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go find a place and sit down and write a letter. And I don't know if it's ever going to be received by anyone. Don't know if anyone will ever even receive this, but it's just something that I've wanted to do as part of this spirit quest, it's something I wanted to do before I actually go and start searching, because I don't want to run out of time, and that would be terrible. So this is something that I really want to get done, and I'm gonna go do it first before I do anything else. Kind of a kickoff of the destination part of the trip. Baker's Hole is the name of that place, and there's campgrounds here that I almost blew just past, but let's see what's down here. Notice grizzly bears frequent this area. Store food and coolers in your vehicle. Okay. He talks about just taking a trip on his own once and floating down this river. And I just want to take a look at her. Campsite number 52. I'm gonna hop out and go walk down by the river.
I closed my eyes tight as my body crashed into the trees, breaking limbs and bouncing me around for what seemed like an unreasonable length of time. It didn't help that the wind blast during ejection had jerked the helmet off of my head. Finally, my descent was broken when the parachute tangled in a tree, and I felt myself gently bouncing up and down for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes, I was 18 inches above the jungle floor, and I couldn't believe my good fortune. I quickly unfastened the parachute harness and stepped to the ground. 18 days earlier, I'd been shot down near Binh Thuy in the Delta region of South Vietnam, and it taught me that bad luck is not something that always happens to the other guy. I thought that any landing I could walk away from was a good one. The incident in Binh Thuy taught me that some landings that I could limp away from were also good.
I'm headed now to this place called Hedgen Lake. Oh, there's a buffalo. There's a couple of buffaloes. I'm sure I'll see plenty more of those. Well, in the thrill of the chase, Forrest talks about going to, there's a story that's called, like, Searching for Lewis and Clark or something like that, where he and a friend of his went just out into the wilderness to try to find, come across something that said Lewis and Clark had been there, basically. And he talks about this place called the Red Canyon that is up here on the north side of Hedgen Lake. And it's more just a place that I want to go check out because he talked about it than I want to go and search for the treasure. But, I'm of course going to look around while I'm up there. Here's a canyon, and the poem talks about a canyon. And there's some other rivers over here. that there's pictures in the books of him like having caught fish along these in these rivers, but I just don't think that they fit the beginning of the poem, talking about where warm waters halt and stuff. That doesn't jive with these areas, but it's still some stuff that I want to go take a look at before I really go into the park and start searching, because once I start searching, I'm not going to want to stop to come back and look at this stuff. So it was a earthquake that happened out here in like 1959, and one of the mountains collapsed and completely engulfed a campground and killed like 20-something people. For a minute, I thought that one of those people could have been Brown, and it was, buried right there. But that was kind of stupid, and I couldn't find a list in their names anyway, so I gave up on that. But it kind of split the lake in half and created a separate lake called Earthquake or Quake Lake. And I just want to go take a look at the spot where that happened. And also up in Red Canyon, there's a fault scrape up there that I've seen a picture of, and just because I saw the picture of it and it was interesting, I want to go see it for real. So that's where we're headed right now.
When in combat, even if there was chaos all around me, there was always a feeling of tranquility that came from the firm belief that I was totally invincible. But at Chapone, the instant it became evident that my airplane wasn't going to take me home, every feeling I had seemed to have a mind of its own. There was no panic or heightened sense of anxiety, but my brain shifted into an adrenaline overdrive. Confidence can only come with knowledge and training, although good ego helps. Every night during my year in Vietnam, the last thing I thought of before going to sleep was my bailout procedure. It was burned into my brain. Remove the film from the gun camera and zip it in my G-suit pocket. Put the cord of my Minox camera around my left wrist and pull it tight. Throw my tape recorder on the floor, stow all loose gear, fasten the chin strap of my helmet, and lower the visor. Put my heels in the ejection seat stirrups, force head back against the headrest, straighten back, lift the armrest to below the canopy, pull both ejection triggers.
I think that tree-covered area over there, coming down this way, is the part that collapsed, but I'm not quite there yet, so I don't know. This was just too... oh, amazing. Do not stop and get out and look at it.
And if the emergency didn't allow the 7 seconds it took to complete the whole procedure, then go directly to the last 5, because failure to do even one was usually disastrous. Broken necks, backs, and legs were not uncommon. My canopy had been shattered by gunfire, but large jagged pieces of thick plastic were still attached to the aluminum framework just above my head.
Basically what it looked like is that was ground level, and then when the earthquake happened, everything slid down to here, and there's still other areas, see, that slid down again. I think that's what they're trying to say anyway. Look at that tree. Half of its root system came out 60, 70 years ago, and it's still hanging there. Crazy.
I worried that my ejection seat mechanism might have been damaged, meaning I would have to crawl over the side and manually pull the ripcord on my parachute. I needed some luck. When I lifted my armrests, the canopy frame blew away from the aircraft as advertised, and I felt better. Although the jungle was dense, I decided to continue my descent and wait until the last second to eject. I didn't want to be shot in the parachute. When I reached what I thought was 1,000 feet above the trees, I pulled both ejection triggers. What followed was a blur of activity.
So I'm headed up this windy dirt road now to a place called Red Canyon. It's only about 3 miles long, but that seems about 2.5 miles longer than I really care to follow it. But I figure I'll check it out just because I'm already, I'm probably close to a mile down the road.
I was blown from the plane by a 37mm cannon that was designed to provide seat clearance over the vertical tail when traveling at high speed.
It gets snowy if I go any further, and it's getting kind of cold, so I don't know if I really want to go up too much further. It gets kind of nasty, but I don't know. I guess I'll go a little further. The road stays pretty nice up there as far as I just walked, so I'm going to drive up there. And there's a sign for the fault scrape, so I know I wasn't crazy. I think this one's going to be more significant than another one that I took a picture of, so hopefully it will be. That creek is moving fast, but it's going south, which doesn't fit my interpretation of the poem, because you begin where warm waters halt, and there's no hot springs north of this. So you take it in the canyon down from a place where warm water halted. You don't have a place to start if it was this creek that we were talking about.